you were never meant to be satisfied. That's the curse. And the gift, etched into your bones. You've felt it since childhood. The haunting hunger, the quiet sense that something is always missing, just beyond reach. Like a shadow, always a second behind your steps. No matter how much you achieve, no matter how hard you try to fill the silence, it returns. That aching echo. The truth you try to forget. Nothing will ever be enough. And somewhere deep inside, you know it. This truth doesn't announce itself with fanfare. It seeps in through the cracks of your accomplishments. It whispers to you in the moments right after you get what you thought you wanted. It shows up when you're alone, staring at the ceiling, wondering why the thrill never lasts. It's the ghost at the finish line, clapping for you with empty hands. You thought success would fix the hole, but it didn't. It just made it louder. The world will tell you to chase more money, more validation, more milestones, more healing, more enlightenment. But what they won't say, what they don't want to admit, is that this constant seeking is not a flaw. It's not a bug in your design. It is the design. You were built to hunger, not because you're broken, but because you are infinite. That's what no one tells you. That the reason nothing satisfies you is because you were never meant to stay here, not in this moment, not in this version of yourself. You were not meant to settle. You were meant to spiral, upward, outward, inward, over and over. The pain of never being enough is the evidence that you are becoming something more. But most people don't see it that way. Most people numb it, drown it, try to silence it. They blame themselves for not being happy. They call themselves ungrateful. They stay in bad relationships, in safe jobs, in cities that suffocate them, because they think the problem is them. That if they were just better, they'd finally feel complete. But they never will, and neither will you, because you weren't built for completion. You were built for evolution. That's your burden and your superpower. But let's not romanticize it. This isn't a pep talk. This is war. You will lose friends who think you're too intense. You will feel like a stranger in rooms you used to feel at home in. You will watch the old versions of you rot and crumble. You will grieve people who are still alive. You will scream into pillows. You will ask over and over again, why can't I just be normal? Why can't I just be satisfied? And then you will remember, because you are not here to fit in. You are here to expand. Most people are addicted to the illusion of arrival. They want to believe that someday they'll get there, that mythical place where the pain stops and everything makes sense. But that place doesn't exist, and the longer you chase it, the more bitter you become, until you either break or wake up. Waking up is brutal. It shatters the lies that used to comfort you. It leaves you raw, exposed, uncertain. But it's also the beginning of real freedom. Because once you stop chasing the end, you can finally start living the process. You begin to realize that every time you thought you were failing, you were actually evolving. That every heartbreak, every restless night, every time you looked around and thought, is this all there is? Those were sacred moments. Not signs of lack, but signs of life. Signs that your soul was refusing to go numb. You were never meant to be finished. You are an open loop, a breathing paradox, a wild question mark wrapped in flesh. That's why your goals always change the moment you reach them. That's why your healing never feels done. That's why you feel emptier after every win. It's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're doing something right. You're growing rapidly, relentlessly, and that growth will cost you everything that once made you feel safe. People won't understand this path. They'll call it selfish, dramatic, delusional. They will tell you to be grateful, to be realistic, to calm down. But what they're really saying is, come back. Come back to the comfort of smallness. Come back to the prison of normalcy. Come back to the version of you that didn't make them question their own stagnation. But you can't go back, because once you've seen it, once you've felt it, you know. There is no going back to sleep. Your hunger isn't a mistake, it's a compass, a sacred agitation, a reminder that you are not here to settle into who you are. You are here to outgrow who you've been, again and again, until death meets you in the middle of a sentence you never finished. And yes, it's exhausting. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's easier to lie to yourself, to pretend you're satisfied, to fake a smile and tell people you're doing great. But you're not. And deep down, you don't want to be. You want to burn, to shed, to become. And that requires discomfort. It requires solitude. It requires losing everything that's not aligned with the version of you that's trying to be born. This is not a journey for the faint-hearted. This is not self-help. This is self-destruction for the sake of truth. And the truth is terrifying. Nothing will ever be enough for you. And yet, somewhere deep in that terror is the first flicker of freedom. Because once you stop begging for enough, you start creating from the void. The emptiness you feared becomes your canvas. The ache becomes your engine. You stop chasing satisfaction like a drug and start using your dissatisfaction like a sword. You carve meaning from the nothingness. You write your name into the silence. You stop waiting to feel full and learn to live while starving. There is power in that hunger. It keeps you honest. It keeps you moving. The people who tell you to just be happy don't understand that happiness was never the goal. Presence was, depth was, truth was, and none of those things are painless. They demand sacrifice. They demand the death of comfort, the burial of illusion, the courage to sit in the fire of your own longing without trying to escape it. You were not meant to be sedated by ease. You were meant to be sculpted by resistance. That's why the idea of arrival is so dangerous. It tricks you into thinking the work ends, that you'll find a partner, or a job, or a city, or a mindset that finally makes everything click. But it never does. The closer you get, the further the target moves, because it was never about the target. It was about the movement. You are the process, not the product. And that changes everything. You start to view your dissatisfaction not as a weakness, but as a supersense, a radar for truth, a holy discomfort that alerts you when you've stopped growing. That moment you wake up and realize you can't breathe in the life you built, that's not failure. That's the alarm clock of your evolution. But evolution is brutal. It doesn't wait for your schedule. It rips apart your timelines. It exposes the lies you swore were your identity. It tears the roof off your carefully constructed world and leaves you naked in the downpour, asking who you really are without your coping mechanisms. That's where the real work begins. Because healing isn't a warm bath. It's a scalpel. It cuts deep. It removes not just the wound, but everything that grew around it. The narratives, the personas, the defenses. And when it's done, you're left hollow. Not because something is missing, but because now there's space for what's real. You're not broken, you're shedding. The version of you that thought enough was the goal is dying. And in its place is someone stranger, rawer, more dangerous. Someone who doesn't chase peace, but embodies presence. Someone who doesn't need validation because they're too busy becoming. Someone who understands that the ache will always be there, but that the ache is holy. You will lose people on this path. That's unavoidable. Some will leave because they can't keep up. Others because your growth triggers their guilt. And some because they only ever loved your stillness, your willingness to stay small. Let them go. Not everything you lose is a loss. In the silence that follows, you will hear something new. The sound of your own becoming. Not the noise of self-improvement. Not the screams of perfectionism, but the quiet, steady hum of truth. It says, keep going, not because you'll arrive, but because this movement is your purpose. You will become addicted to the unknown, not because you crave chaos, but because you've learned that safety was never safe. It was just familiar, and the familiar is the cage. You will start to crave the edges, the wildness, the place where your voice shakes and your hands tremble, because that's where life actually lives. You'll stop asking, will this ever be enough? And start asking, how much more of me can I become? And the answer will always be more. There is no finish line. There's only the next version, and the next, and the next. Each one more raw, more real, more you. Not in the sense of discovering yourself, but creating yourself, piece by painful piece. Every heartbreak is a chisel. Every failure is a flame. Every restless night is another brick in the cathedral of your becoming. That's why it hurts so much, because you're birthing something holy. Nothing will ever be enough for you, and that is the most terrifying and liberating truth you will ever face. Because once you accept it, you stop waiting. You stop delaying your joy, your art, your voice, your life. You live now, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. And that's where the power lives. Not in the illusion of arrival, but in the fire of becoming. So let the ache stay. Let it guide you. Let it haunt you. Let it remind you every day that you are not done, not even close. You are a question, not an answer. You are a spiral, not a line. You are infinite, and you are starving, and that is your superpower. Welcome to the hunger. Subscribe for more spirals through the dark with Philospiral.